In this video, I will be talking about how I handle my grief, which helps me heal and become a more authentic version of me. Having experienced narcissistic abuse, the feeling of not being good enough dominates most of my days. I create to-do lists and start doing routines to prove my worth. I do everything in my life to prove my worth. My sense of well-being is lost because of this habit of having to prove my worth. This is how my sadness manifests for me. My stolen childhood starts to flash in front of my eyes. My days of deep sadness as a little girl, where I kept promising myself that one day this will all be over, keep flashing in front of my eyes. My whole life, which was stolen by my mother, keeps flashing in front of me. I have made room for this sadness and grief in my life. A permanent guest of my life. I choose to treat grief as a guest who has to come to my house. At first he was unwelcome, but over time I have realized he is here with a purpose. While grief had a strong presence in the beginning, with therapy and inner work, this guest has now become an intermediary between me and my lost self. At first this was an unwelcome guest who felt more like an intruder, but now this guest feels more like a political diplomat who I have to negotiate with and work with in order to get in touch with who I really am. When grief comes to your house, they will always overstay their welcome. They will only leave when their time comes, and only if you have done everything you possibly can to have them leave. When you take steps towards healing, grief starts to move around your house, and when you start healing, grief begins to leave your house at the most slowest pace possible. When I invite other guests into my house, such as joy, new experiences, physical exercise, therapy sessions, friends, grief changes his shape and form, becoming lighter and lighter in presence. When I go for a run, I look like someone who is really traumatized is going for a run. When I socialize, people can tell that I have grief who lives inside me. When I learn new activities, I observe how I carry my own sadness. I, however, carry on. I experience life. I start with feeling good enough even before I begin something, and see how that changes the shape of my grief. I do not allow grief to dominate the day. This is what we need. We need other guests in our house to remind grief that he is not the only one in the house, so he has to behave himself and give space to the others. If you allow, grief will occupy all the rooms in your house at once, even before you wake up from your sleep in the morning. Not allowing any room for any of your other emotions to even take a seat next to him. Grief can be unruly, and in the steps we take we remind him where he belongs, and that he is merely a guest, not the owner of the house. He envelopes the most vulnerable parts of you even before you notice. Your inner child is engulfed with grief every single day. Working with grief every single day, reminding that sad part of us that it is an emotion and not the only part of us, can be challenging. Yet it must be done. I have learned to carry it, hold space for that emotion, learn to draw boundaries with it, change that emotion by channeling it in creative ways and creative arts, learn to lessen the intensity of it by processing it, and above all acknowledge its presence in every area of my life. My grief was first unbearable. Now I interact with it through journaling, drawing, painting, writing poems. I basically use every expressive medium there is to express my grief. I even dance it out. I understand that this emotion is there to guide me and help me navigate through all the pain I have been put through during my childhood. Narcissists change your character and personality by telling you who you are. They constantly keep feeding you information about your low self-worth and your undeserving zero character. The grief you experience is because you have been disconnected from your sense of self-worth and positive self-belief system. You become your own enemy. You start believing in the worst about yourself, and now you are filled with grief because you have lost yourself. Losing your sense of self causes grief. Sense of self is what guides us in choosing our life path, partners, friends, and professions. Without this, we can be quite seriously lost and thus grieve the apparent loss of our lives. Every day when you wake up and before going to sleep, you can try writing about yourself, which helps you believe you are good enough, you are deserving of love and affection, you are capable, and that you have this amazing personality and character. People who already have all this in place grow up with a healthy belief system about themselves. When you build this system for yourself, you replace your grief with new emotions such as love, respect, safety, well-being, and boundaries. So grief is here to show you what you are lacking, the places where you are hurting, and how deeply it has affected you. While we may not be able to change what happened to us, we can definitely work towards our own well-being. We can use grief to understand ourselves better. If you are able to function as a person who is healthy and has healthy respect for themselves, then the grief you feel will not be as much. So there is hope for us to be able to work towards a future where we feel connected to ourselves and we feel good about ourselves. While this change may take a while to happen, in the meantime there are many things you can do to manage your grief. Managing grief is an everyday activity. Grief has to be managed. Others may not understand your ongoing grief. Your grief does not have to look a certain way, and you do not have to feel bad about yourself for having to carry so much grief in your system. From me to you, from one person who manages grief caused by a narcissist to another, I say this to you. I hope you carry yourself with love, compassion, and kindness. I hope you take the time to manage your emotions and listen to your sadness each and every single day. When you feel deep amounts of grief, I hope you are able to sit with it and offer yourself understanding, love, and compassion. No matter how long this takes or how many times you have to repeat this process, I hope you take the time to do this for yourself. Listening to yourself is the best way to deal with your grief. Sitting with how you feel is the best way to manage your grief. Your inner child will tell you about the sadness, about the hurt, pain, about the lost childhood. I hope you are able to sit with all this. It may all seem pointless, but this is how you manage your pain. By listening to it and sitting with it. I hope you take the time for yourself and you do this for yourself. Talking about grief or expressing it any manner possible is a cathartic experience. It changes something inside of you. I urge you to take action today to express this grief you feel so much and tell me if it did not bring you closer to who you really are. Please comment below and share your journey of grief with me. Thank you for watching, and I hope this talk has helped you rethink grief and how it can help you. Have faith and never give up on the hope you have.